Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nyedis Anarchy series. I'm your host Adam Callen, the CIO of Nyedis, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about HIPAA, cybersecurity, and apparently about how 20% of all the healthcare companies out there are not protecting your information. Now, this comes with an article from the HIPAA Journal. Maybe we should talk about what HIPAA is. So let's kind of scroll on over here to our wonderful HIPAA Wikipedia article. Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. What does that mean? Well, I mean, you can go through all this stuff. You can even read the act. It's super boring, lots of words. The gist of it is this. No one in the United States is allowed to share your personal healthcare information with anyone unless you give them written authorization. So if you go to a doctor or a shrink or anything that resolves to in any way, shape, or form of personal health information, that falls under HIPAA. So in the data world, what that means is if we're working on information, even us as people, we have to sign all kinds of documentation that says, hey, in contracts that we're not going to share or leak this information because this stuff is super secure. So what this article that we're talking about from the HIPAA Journal, where all they do is talk about people's privacy around their healthcare information, is that 1/5 of healthcare organizations do not enforce cybersecurity protocols. So obviously there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. First, let's break this down. So this was originally conducted by Salesforce as a survey with 400 healthcare workers in the United States. That's not a lot of people. If you really want to see what's going on in the world, you're going to need a larger group than 400 people. But either way, let's still roll with that. So the next thing they were saying is that we have 22% of respondents say their organization does not strictly enforce cybersecurity protocols. What does that even mean? Does that mean they don't force password rotations? Does that mean they just allow anyone onto the network? They don't do any security vulnerability scannings, whatever? It's pretty open-ended, so I really don't even know what that is. For me, whenever I see these articles where they're trying to tell you like how secure something is or not secure, and especially when they're talking about people that they've interviewed, what was the question they asked them? Is it, hey, does your company force password rotations at least every 30 days? And if they say no, does that mean, oh, they don't strictly enforce cybersecurity protocols? Like, what does that really mean? I don't know. 31% of respondents say they're unsure what they should do in the event of a breach. I'm pretty sure everyone knows you contact your manager. Like, I don't think that's like an unknown. It's like, oh, if there's a security breach, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. So I'm really curious as to what they're really saying here. And then 2/3 of workers say they have a security-first culture at work. I can tell you right now that is complete bull hockey because as much as every security person out there is screaming at their organization that security is first and needs to be paramount, it never is. It never is. It's always, no, we need to make this thing work, functional, and easy to the users, and we'll bypass security if we have to because this thing has to be functional. Then, if there's a breach or if something goes wrong, then they start yelling at security people, why didn't you put this security stuff in place? Why didn't you protect this stuff? And then the security guys are sitting there ripping their hair out going, I've been telling you this for years. And of course, now it happens. So yeah, the security first, this whole like dash first thing is a whole new buzzword that's going on everywhere. It's like, oh, we're cloud first. We're identity first. We're security first. We're whatever first. It's like, okay, are you though? I mean, you can say all the buzzwords you want. It doesn't mean you're actually doing it. And a company, 67% of companies being security first, I'm not buying that at all. Doesn't mean they're not secure, but I'm saying there's no way they're putting security as the very first thing that's paramount above all else. 31% of people say they're not familiar with their company's security policy. That makes sense. I would say it's probably even higher. Most of my clients I have no clue what their entire security policy is. A lot of these places, they have an entire enterprise security organization where all they do is write policies and enforce them and check to make sure everything's falling into them. So it's, it's almost like an own group of internal security lawyers. Let's get to the fun part though. So at the end of the article, we have 1/3 of workers say they're using the same password for their personal and their work accounts. That's, I bet, a little low. Because first off, you're gonna have a lot of people lying. They're just saying, oh, of course I use different passwords everywhere, very much so. Like, no. Like, so that number is way higher. And this is why we should be talking about passwordless. 1/3 of people have the same password. Basically what this means is they're using the same password everywhere for everything. So if Bob over here is that gets his personal email hacked because his password is the name of his dog. And then someone gets into his email and they're like, oh, well, that was his password for that. Let's see if his password is the same for everything else. Sure enough, it is. Then it's password for the VPN. It's the password for the servers. And this dude's password, Fluffy25 is the same across the board for everything. And he's running around, oh, I've been hacked. Well, how did it happen? Well, you had a super bad password and you have used the same one everywhere. Now, what's standard practice? Oh, well, you should have a different password for every single thing that you log into. Who's going to remember that? Like, most people don't have a clue what every password is for every website, and they're all being different and long and complex with special characters and uppercase, lowercase. Like, that's impossible. How's anyone going to remember that? Well, actually, you know what? I'll give you a tip here. I actually do this, and here's what I do. So I'm not going to give you my actual passwords. That'd be crazy. But what I do is I come up with an extremely long, complex password that I can remember, and I just repeat it in my head over and over and over and over again. And what I do is I make a phrase out of it.
I was going to foot.
So like what I would say, I'm just looking around the room, and this is how I'll pick it up. I'll say, hey, alien table skull Jason picture door. Alien table skull picture door.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
And I'll take the first letter of those. I'll capitalize 2 of them, and then I'll throw a couple numbers in there. Like maybe I'll say alien skull 500 picture door. So I'll put the number 500 in there. So I'll throw that in the middle. So what happens is I now have a long phrase and with random numbers in there in uppercase and lowercase, and I just remember that part. So that's the part that I got done. Now what I do is I'll take something that's tied to the website, like say the domain. I don't use the domain anymore, a little bit more. I'm leveled up my passwords from there, but this is the easiest one to start out with. Look at your domain. Let's say you're going to google.com. So put a lowercase g in the beginning and put a lowercase e at the end and put your crazy complex thing in the middle. And then if you want, you can throw some tertiary stuff on the end, but for now, that's it. So now what you can do is you go to Google, it's G, some crazy stuff, E. And then you go to Microsoft, M, crazy stuff, T. So now you have a different password everywhere. So if Google or Microsoft were to ever get compromised, that password gets leaked out into the darknet, that password won't work anywhere else. You have a unique password, but you have an easy way and a mnemonic way to remember what that crazy password is across all different things. So there's a little tip for you on how to create crazy complex passwords that are different everywhere that you can actually remember. But most people aren't going to do that. They're going to write that down on a sticky note, and then someone's going to take a picture of it, and then bam, they have their passwords to everything. That's where password management comes into play. Oh, we're going to use vaults and all this kind of stuff. We'll get into that later. But basically, this is a great excuse as to why passwordless is an awesome solution, because everyone's using the same passwords everywhere and everyone's lazy. That's pretty much the gist of it. So back to this. So 25% of workers admitted to clicking a suspicious link. If you know it's suspicious, why are you clicking on it? I think that's the first question. I think a lot of people feel that these are, so everyone knows what phishing is, I'm assuming, right? Where someone sends out an email and they're trying to pretend to be someone else to get you to give them credentials, give them information. So what companies do nowadays is they have a phishing team. What they'll do a lot of times, they either have software, they'll get a third-party consultant or some SaaS solution, and what they do is they'll come up with some fancy way to send an email from the CEO saying, hey, you know what? You're doing such a great job. I want to give you a $20 Amazon gift card. Click here to fill it out. And then what they'll do is they'll click here and they'll see like fake corporate page. And then you log in with your username and password, and boom, the attacker now has your email and password to log into the corporate domain. But what they're doing is they're sending these emails out to everyone in the company, and they're hoping they click the "this is a phishing email" report button, and then yay, you win. So now it's like a game. So they've made it to where everyone's looking for these emails, and every time they see one, they're like, oh, this is probably a phishing email. So what's happened is I think we've made it to where people are no longer thinking, oh, this is actually someone trying to break into my shit. This is just a game. This is someone probably doing something, and they'll probably click around on it just out of curiosity, just to see what it is. Now the problem is, if it's one where it's just like, hey, they're trying to get information out of you, like get usernames and passwords, and people don't put that in, that's fine. But a lot of these are malicious enough to where when you click the link, it actually will go somewhere and automatically download something to your computer, run it malicious software. That's how a lot of this malware gets put out there. All these places that are getting all their servers and stuff locked out with ransomware, that's how this is happening. Like, you should never click on that link, ever. Not even if you think it's a joke, even if you think it is one of those corporate tests, don't ever click on it, ever. Because that thing's gonna come back to you so fast, and then you're gonna be the one in trouble for clicking on it. Don't do it, just delete it, forward it to your manager, figure out what your policy is. But 25% of the people clicking on a suspicious link, Don't do that. That's just ridiculous. Okay, 42% of workers report all suspicious emails to the security team. Those are your Karens. Those are the ones those are your overachievers. Most people just delete it and don't care. 19% do not always use VPN when conducting work online. So this is an interesting number. I think it's only 19%, because most companies have policies where they force and require a VPN to be able to connect in to do anything. And then the last one, which is 39% of workers always use multi-factor authentication. That's actually way up from what I thought it'd be. I thought it'd be a lot less than that. So this proves that MFA, these, getting a push notification or a text message to fully log in, is really helping, because that eliminates a lot of the phishing out of the gate right there. Now, the big question is, how do we solve all this stuff? How do we come in and say, well, we need to get everyone, we need 100% of people to be using VPNs. We need 100% of people using MFA. We need 100% of people supporting or reporting suspicious emails. Like, that's what everyone wants, right? So the first two we can do. How do we make sure everyone uses a VPN? How do we make sure everyone uses MFA? You require it. You just make it to where there's no other way. If you want to get into the corporate network, you have to VPN in. There's no other way to do it. Simple. You set that up for your networking rules. 40% of people using MFA, how do we get that to 100? Easy. To log into anything, you require MFA. You can use single sign-on solutions, there are various access management tools. They all have the ability to plug in some third-party external MFA solution. Amazon has one you can build out with their SNS, SES solution. You can build out your own if you wanted to and make it super cheap, pennies. So there's no reason to not force MFA, especially if you have anything sensitive, like personal health information of a bunch of patients that are yours that absolutely cannot be leaked, because you can get massively fined, even jail time, depending on how bad of an offense it is. So this type of stuff should be taken seriously, and a lot of these are easily solvable with policies and just configuration that forces people to do it. You can force a password access management tool, a PAM solution, that will automatically rotate passwords for people. So this way, if I want to go to log into a server, I don't even know what that password is. But what will happen is, I'll go to this PAM tool and say, hey, I want to go to this Unix server. And what it will do is it will log me into that PAM server with the password that only it knows. And then once I'm done and I log out, then that PAM tool will rotate that password to something else completely random. So every time I log in and out of a server, it's automatically rotating these passwords, and no one ever sees what those passwords are. So now you don't have to worry about those passwords being expired or no one being shared or whatever, because it's impossible. And one step past that is ephemeral accounts. So if I want to log into this Unix server, I don't even have an account on the Unix server, but I contact the PAM tool when I say, hey, I want to log into this Unix server, and the PAM tool will create the account and the password on the server and then log me in. And then when I'm done, it wipes the account out. So this way, that attack vector isn't even there. Only the time I'm on the server is that account actually there, and it's with a random password I don't even know. So there's software out there that can help with all this kind of stuff. It really just comes down to corporate policy. Also, if you are one of those people that is using the same password everywhere and you're not using a VPN, if someone's asking you this in a survey, you shouldn't tell them this. You're giving them away some serious information on, oh, well, hey, this is a target. If I want to get into whatever company you work for, it's like, hey, what company do you work for? It's like, oh, I work for whatever healthcare company. Okay, we're doing a survey on security preparedness and how good you are. So do you use the same password on all your things like everyone else out there? It's like, oh, yeah, I do. Oh, okay, yeah, blah, blah. And what company do you work for? Oh, so-and-so. Oh, man, yeah. Well, we have policies, but no one really enforces. Like, how do you know this is actually for an article? This could be a guy actually just phishing you to try to get information from you, to social engineer it out, to hack you to get in to do everything. Don't tell anyone anything about anything in your corporate environment or even personal life about your passwords, about how you do things, about how you access stuff. Don't tell anyone anything. There's no reason. There's no benefit to you. And all you could do is be giving other people information to help them hack you. So don't tell people you're using the same password if you are. Get a password manager. Use the tips I told you about how you can generate a new password for every website that's complex and still remember it in your head. So this way, if it gets released, it's not compromised. Lots of things you can do. Hopefully, this was informative to some of you guys. It is always cool to see stuff like this. If you have questions about HIPAA or how your data can be protected using identity and access management, hit me up in the comments. You can also follow us on Twitter, all the different social medias, and Instagram at Nyedis CIO, which is NYEDISIAM. We're on YouTube for the video stuff, and we're also we're on LinkedIn and all the Facebooks and all that fun stuff. So hit me up anytime you have any questions. We're here to help you out. Talk to you guys around. Later.